Did they give you a license to turn back all the clocks in town, and you're showing up timeless, right on cue to get me down? Did you know you're sleeping with all the nightmares in my mind? Don't you know you're creeping around my bedroom late at night? I'll wait a minute for the sun to rise. Yeah, she got the best of me this time. The nights alone have got me petrified. You're keeping me up, you're seeing me through, taking my nightline. I'll wait a minute for the sun to shine. Yeah, she made a mess of me this time. The nights alone have got me petrified. You're keeping me up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cheyenne, and I head the Innovation Award at the Fair Education Alliance. I'll be supporting this session alongside Ellie, who is our office manager. A huge welcome to the session on bringing curriculum learning to life in partnership with employers. We're delighted to be joined today by Gerard Liston from Forum Talent Potential, who's going to be leading the session. Today is the last day of the Impact Festival, so it feels a bit bittersweet, but we're excited to have you for the session. Please do tweet about the event using the hashtag Impact Festival and tagging @_the FEA. Before we kick off, I want to share an intro to the Fair Education Alliance and the 2 awards that we currently have open for applications till the 18th of May. So as most of you know, the Fair Education Alliance is a coalition of over 200 organizations across the business, education, and charity sectors, collectively working to make education fair in England. In addition to our collective action and policy work, we run 3 award programs to nurture and scale impactful solutions to end educational inequality. 2 of the award programs are currently open for applications until the 18th of May, so you should definitely apply if you're interested. Both the awards give a £15,000 grant. That's a salary contribution and 1 year of support to anyone who has an idea to make education fair. FEA members can apply for the Entrepreneurship Award, and all members of the public can apply for the Innovation Award. So as you can see on the slide, a couple of areas of support that the awards provide. Along with the funding, there's one-to-one strategic support, a place on a year-long incubator, which covers a range of topics for those trying to develop an innovation. And a lot of these sessions have already happened on the bottom panel, but the 29th April, so the 5 p.m. today on the left and the 11 a.m., so right after this for the Entrepreneurship Award, are ones you can attend if you're interested. With that, I'm gonna stop sharing my slides. Cool. And we're gonna get started now. To kick off, we'll break you up into groups of 2 or 3 for 5 minutes, just to break the ice, get to know each other a little bit. When you're in your breakout room, please share your name, your organization, your role, and we'd like you to discuss a question related to the session. And the question is, what one thing would you change to create a new normal for our education system? So that's what one thing would you change to create a new normal for our education system? And Ellie's going to put that in the chat as well. Once you come back from your breakout room, it'd be great to hear from you. So if you can just kind of type out a 1-sentence answer in the chat, and we might also hear from some people verbally if you're willing to share. So I hope you enjoy networking in the breakout rooms, and we'll see you shortly on the other side. Okay, I see. I think Ellie is having a bit of trouble with the Wi-Fi. So let me just initiate the breakouts. Ellie, are you back? Perfect. Ellie, do you want me to initiate the breakouts? Oh, okay, oh, good, perfect. You got it. Awesome. Cool. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a great discussion. Without further ado, I'll now hand over to Gerard to lead us into the session.
Thanks very much. And great managed to get here 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning. And I don't know how many of you have been through the whole program. Just talking early, Sharon, about the fact that running over a weekend it gives a huge scope of content to join in with. So it's been, if you've got this far, then congratulations if you've done any more of this session. I'm going to focus on, gather from the topic, and be looking at, I'm just going to share my screen now, this whole idea of bringing learning to life by involving employers. This actually is an image from the Fair Education Alliance website, which was looking at the summit last November, and this is a review of the content. That article, Bringing Learning to Life, the New Normal, which was hosted on the Skills Builder Partnerships website, I wrote that, and I was really trying to ask the question, actually, is this an opportunity to change the way we do things in education? I thought I'd just slides, there we go. Let's have a look at a quote. What do other people say? This is an interesting article in The Guardian. It is a chance to rethink the way we do things in education. It is, and I'm sure many of you you're involved in education will be acutely aware, largely measured still in terms of academic success and attainment, exam results. This article also in The Guardian just earlier this month, including a quote, somebody saying we surely should be looking at more than just academic, look at vocational. There should be an equality between those two, and clearly organisations like Edge Foundation have for many years been campaigning for exactly that. I thought this was interesting. This is the OECD, so with a European perspective, just last month, and this is obviously a very short quote from a much larger report, looking at the world after COVID-19, or during COVID-19 actually, and saying, put simply, our schools today are our economies tomorrow, making a very direct connection between what happens in the classroom and where young people will be in the future, which clearly is, on the whole, going to be in the workplace somewhere. And then I thought this was a nice quote. This was Steve Chalk, the founder of Oasis Community Learning, and he's not shy of being controversial and speaking his mind. And here he is, this is very much describing the ethos of that multi-academy trust, saying, actually, young people, we should be looking at the individual child, not the system, not looking at qualifications, but how do we equip each child to discover their strengths and skills and focus on their individual needs. So I've asked earlier, I don't know, not quite sure how this works in practice, but there's a poll that I think will pop up where you've got choices above all. So you might want to tick them all, but if you were asked above all, which of these should schools be helping youngsters with, which one would you pick? Okay, we've got one. Yeah. Okay, so I think we'll share the results. So, exam success, somebody obviously thinks they're important above all. And actually, I was in a discussion yesterday on one of the sessions where somebody said, that is, GCSEs are the things we can measure. Of course, they're important, should be top of the list. But most people suggest that the school system should be about helping a young person to discover their unique place in the world. I would agree with that as well. And I can just go back to the slides. Maybe as an ex-teacher, This is a picture that I guess anybody who works in or has worked in the classroom will recognise this child, and I guess this is the real challenge that faces an education system. It comes down to this: how do we address this situation? A child who's saying, in effect, and this is a great quote, great book as well. It's been around a while, but it's still as relevant now as it was when it was published. You know, when that kid enters your classroom, and it might be in their behaviour, it might be they say it openly, but they will be saying one way or another, "Sir, miss, what's the point? Why should I bother learning this stuff?" It's a perfectly reasonable question for a young person to be asking. And I thought this was an interesting quote from the head of Ofsted just last month in a speech he made, saying, actually, when we're looking at the curriculum, we have to think about where it's taking them. You know, what's the point of this curriculum? It's not an end in itself. It's about the next step that it permits for the child, and that'll be the next stage in their education. Typically, it will be. But what's the next step that this will lead them into? And Education and Employers, a charity that's done a lot of research in this area, identifies that actually those encounters with an employer while a child's still at school can be a really important way of motivating a young person to understand why it's worthwhile working hard at school. And perhaps, as you might expect, the new chief executive of the Careers and Enterprise Company has got a lot of background in this area, identifies that, or states that schools working with employers can be a great way of giving a child a sense of direction. I love that kind of phrase, which helps them with their studies. While they're studying, desk in front of them, the textbook in front of them, they somehow have a picture in their mind of where that could be taken in the future. So interestingly, yesterday in the sessions I was in, twice people mentioned the Gatsby benchmarks and talking about them being really useful tool for giving a reason for getting involved with schools. A lot of charities are recognising this as an opportunity. The two benchmarks I'm going to focus on, there are 8 of them that came from this report a few years ago now, but they are now, these benchmarks provide a reference point for careers guidance in schools. Benchmark 4 is about embedding careers within the curriculum. Benchmark 5 is about creating encounters, multiple encounters with employers. So we're going to focus on those 2, but in particular, benchmark 4. And this is a statement from the author. Actually, it's tucked away at the back of the report. It's often missed. And he recognises that benchmark 4, embedding careers in the curriculum, it's hard to do. It takes extensive training. And I'm going to stress this point because in my experience, far too often, embedding careers in the curriculum is seen as, let's get a speaker in. Let's put a poster up on the wall in the science corridor and promote careers that result in science, from science. That's not embedding things, that's just tagging things on the side. And interestingly, this recent report, looking at, this is just last month from the University of Derby, looking at benchmark 4, all the benchmarks, but in benchmark 4, identifying that because it requires that level of training and commitment, it needs support from the top of the school or the group of schools, and it requires CPD to provide it. It doesn't just happen on its own. And the reason I'm focusing on that is because it's our area of expertise. This program for Talent Potential, it's cited by the Careers and Enterprise Company and also their recent documents, and this is their quote actually, tried and tested CPD process. And what we do is we help schools to create meaningful learning experiences embedded within the curriculum involving employers. And creating capacity, building capacity is a key part of this. It's not about delivering a service, it's about enabling the schools to do this for themselves. This is the model. It's about trying to connect strategies in the education system with strategies in employers, creating these meaningful learning experiences, creating multiple meaningful learning experiences so that a child can periodically reflect on how they're developing, what skills they're learning, what they're learning about the big wide world beyond school, so they're better equipped to be in an interview, to make a choice, to write a CV, or whatever happens. This is the model. This is the CPD process, and this is step 1 to 6. It's not like some magic formula. Not that at all. It's about just saying, let's do things systematically. Because if you try to just go at this with a blank sheet in front of you, it tends to just take either forever or it's not particularly productive. And step one is certainly ensure you got support from the top. Step two, and we'll focus on this in a minute, is about how do you get something from the sharp end of teaching. A teacher saying, I want this to be brought to life. In my teaching and learning, the schemes of work that are up ahead of me, oh, this is what I want to be brought to life. Step three is then doing something with that, applying project-based learning principles. Only then, step four, do you approach an employer when you've got a proper story to tell about what we're asking them to do, when they want them to do it, what difference it will make, and how it will work in practice as a partnership. Step five is probably the most important, impact assessment. What difference did it make to the child? And then step six, well, why not share the results? Why not repeat it? Why not make it something that is truly embedded across the school with other subject areas in the subsequent year group and so on? So where the website, and somewhere there'll be a link to the website, there are literally dozens and dozens of case studies. We're going to focus on two this morning. But in particular, what I want to focus on is work we've done with Academies Enterprise Trust. This is the biggest national multi-academy trust. So they've got 60 schools in their trust. They're big. And their underpinning ethos is all about helping each child, as they put it, to find your remarkable. And this is actually one slide from their set of slides about their curriculum strategy. And it's not about one size fits all. You can see this is their wording. They have this approach using the academic self and pathways, terminology. It's the way they've shaped this strategy to allow, as they put it, more time for building skills, careers-related activities, and non-examined topics, and helping pupils to make choices. I think that's critical. You know, the statutory duty a school has is to equip each child to make an informed choice. And they would put an informed choice towards finding their remarkable. So that's Academies Enterprise Trust, their underpinning strategy. They've applied this model in initially working with schools in the Midlands. These are projects that were developed, you know, from year 8 to year 10. And you can see a range of subjects, but also a range of, in this case, virtually all local employers, and ranging from, you know, a local Baptist church supporting an RE project, music recording studio supporting a maths project. You know, it can sometimes be a bit lateral, as well as some, you know, large organisations like the Birmingham City Planning Team working with the geography group, and there's a global car recycling firm. You know, so a whole range of different employers. It's not just the obvious ones, the big corporates, and it's definitely not about just dumping things on their shoulders and saying, right, over to you, can you lead this session in the classroom? That series led on to another program where Academies Enterprise Trust were working with the NHS, trying to promote, they were wanting to promote allied health professions, and those are being linked with, again, a whole range of different subject areas. So I'm going to share two case studies, and I'll breeze through this fairly quickly to really stimulate discussion in a minute or two. The first is about, it's an English topic, and the brief from the teacher was, look, we've got to get youngsters to answer these questions. We cannot escape it. Section B, English language, is, you know, about non-fiction writing. Here's a topic. It's an invented topic. And what the brief was, can we make this real? Can we make it feel less like an exam question, something that's more engaging? So the link was made with the Tamworth Herald, the editors effectively saying, look, I'm the editor, you know, we've got material that we have to write. Loads of stories have covered COVID-19, but we're starting to think about the future, you know, and this was last academic year. So we're looking ahead. Can you help us with that? I want to know editor is saying this. I want to know what you think about, and there are the questions, shaping a brief, a bit like an exam question, to say, write about that in your 45 minutes. So they did, and articles written by the students were sent across. They were selected by the editor. They weren't marked by the teacher. They were marked by the teacher, but alongside that, they were selected by the editor, and a group of them were published. And so it wasn't an invented exam question. It was something that was real. And the impact assessment suggests that, yes, they found it interesting. They found it purposeful. It's helped them to think about their future choices, where they might be in the future, particularly think about career choices, personal choices, and setting targets, planning for the future. So some concept of their personal aspirations, individual aspirations, and actually using the skills builder framework, we looked at employability skills that's been developed. Some of you may have been at the session yesterday with Tom Ravenscroft talking about skills builder. So skills, aspirations, and motivation are three things that we look at. But in some ways, what's more interesting is not the impact across the whole cohort, but what does each young person say? And what's interesting is here, this is one, I haven't got the name here, but so this student was saying, the achievement I'm most proud of was I got my article published. So out of the whole year group, here's one of the students that got her work published. And in this case, it's somebody saying, oh, okay, it was an English topic, but it helped me think about my career. And I remember the teachers saying there was a youngster who was thinking about journalism. This absolutely switched her on to say, this is what I'm going to go for. So a curriculum, subject-based project, and at the same time, helping youngsters think about where they might be in the future. We provide all sorts of, as part of that CPD process, all sorts of resources, one of which is to encourage youngsters to maybe take stock. If they've done loads of these encounters with employers across different subjects, different year groups, periodically they need to reflect. So what are the things at which I'm discovering I'm strongest? What do I enjoy doing? What do I need to improve on? And this, I guess, is what, and I say this as somebody who's responsible for not just teaching, but actually careers and enterprise within a school in Bradford some years back, where I used to hear post-16 students say, Sir, I don't know what to write on my personal statement for my ACAS application. And they'd either stuck everything down or wouldn't know where to start. And it wasn't necessarily we hadn't allowed them or equipped them to tell their own distinctive story. They shouldn't be writing fiction. We should be equipping youngsters to confidently write down something on a CV which says, I have discovered, as a result of these encounters with the real world and my self-evaluation of my skills, what makes me distinctive, what are my strengths? Okay, I've talked a lot, that's one case study, but question for you, and perhaps I'll have a bit of a discussion after this. The statutory duty for careers in schools starts at year 8. And yet, I think most people would accept that, the old model of, get youngsters out at year 10 to do some work experience after the exams where it minimises the impact in the curriculum, or get them in front of a careers advisor at year 11 before they leave to make sure that they don't become neat. That's not good enough. So how early should we start? So Ellie, I think, are you going to put up another poll, and then perhaps we'll have people can. Okay, so what are your views? How early should we begin? Okay, one more to come in, I think. There we are, great. Okay, so a couple of folk feel, maybe where we normally start, traditionally, start at Key Stage 3. The statutory duty kicks in then, certainly from, as I say, year 8. Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 1 right at the beginning of a child's time in statutory learning. Now, if you want to just unmute yourself, if you'd like to explain your thinking behind that, I'd be really interested to know. I'm just going to throw in some thoughts. Okay, Jill?
Yeah, thanks. I've just put it in the chat actually, but I've gone for Key Stage 1, and I think it's perhaps less thinking about people as employers at that stage and more about interesting adults and allowing children to encounter all sorts of possibilities through those adults who are both interesting and interested enough to be present in those children's lives for a bit.
That's great, yeah. I mean, role models are so important, and ultimately an employer ends up typically looking like an employee, somebody who's representing that organisation, and it's usually the person that is inspiring, not the organisation. Anybody else like to add to that?
I don't mind.
Yep.
Speaking. In my previous job, it was all about role models in the classroom, employers, and it was focused on high school. But then we ran a primary program, which was really successful. I got to watch primary school children aged about 6 interact with people from local businesses, and it wasn't, it wasn't like a careers fair or anything. It was just like 3 employers sat around a few different tables with some pupils, and they brought in sort of show and tell items, and they got to ask them questions, and it was just like a really, I guess, of a basic insight, but it was a really great start into like what are the different job options out there. And I thought that was really great for that age.
Something interactive, yeah, really important. Perhaps one other thought? Okay, well, given you've all said, let's start at Key Stage 1. Let's look at what that might look like. Firstly, why bother? Well, actually, research suggests that it's the right place to start. This is a report from the Education Employers charity, just published the other month, and Robert Halton, who chairs the Education Committee, saying it's really important. Start as young as possible. We are equipping youngsters for life, and the earlier we start that process, the better. And going back to Academies Enterprise Trust, we've done a lot of work, and are doing this year actually with them. Having done that work with in Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 last year, both Academies Enterprise Trust and Health Education England said, well, look, if it works at Key Stage 3, why not start earlier? Why not start inspiring youngsters and getting them thinking about their futures from the earliest possible age? So this is a lineup of projects that are happening this academic year. Before the end of this summer term, all these projects will be completed, written up as case studies, and will have been put into practice. And actually it builds on work that was done the previous academic year, working with a consortium, including education employers, where we worked with a number of schools in the opportunity area in Derby in primary schools to bring learning to life. So I'm going to just look at one of these. It happened to be year 5. And I've got to say, I'm ex-teacher, so sometimes I miss being in the corridor with youngsters, go past, all that kind of stuff. It's fun. Primary schools are an absolute joy to work with, combination of youngsters being more endearing, but also the fact that there's necessarily rather more sort of creativity. They're not in the GCSE sort of treadmill, the silos of subjects and the constraints. They're much more creatively applied. In this case, although looking at the subjects, which they can't ignore, they have a curriculum too, but creating a theme. The theme here happened to be chocolate, and it cuts across geography, English, science, and so on. So that they had this thing. They weren't inventing this. It was already going to happen. And the brief, I actually put this up to illustrate the point, this is one of the documents in the CPD resources. And there's a teacher just scribbling this out. In a matter of minutes, she's written her brief and identify actually 2 topics initially. South American chocolate was the topic that she focused on, and then saying why, and talking about gender stereotypes around STEM subjects is a problem in this area. I like the bit at the bottom of that screen, producing fun, memorable experiences which inspire children and challenge their preconceptions. So this is a teacher saying, help, can you do something to bring this area to life? You know, it's already imaginative, but they're saying, what else can we do? So the step 3 was to say, well, actually, what might we do? Well, and you can see here in the middle of the screen, there's a reference to, it's a local chocolatier. I'm thinking, well, maybe we could link up with one of them and if you like, make those tasks, which are already in the curriculum, make them real by linking up with that organisation. What we found in practice was that there were 3 or 4 chocolatiers around Derby, but they were all tiny, tiny organisations. They just didn't have they were so busy producing chocolate, which was obviously highly successful little businesses, that they just didn't have the capacity. And then we identified that in the middle of Derby, there's an Into shopping centre, and Hotel Chocolat they've got a store there, a big, you know, decent sized store, you know, fabulous places. And so we just wrote to the head office, emailed the head office. This is the email. We'd identified this woman, Marissa, was responsible. I think it was for public affairs, I think it was. And just sort of saying, oh, this is what we've got in mind. What can you do? Can you help us? And actually showing that we'd done some research, looked at their website, identified they got some really good resources about where chocolate came from, ethical procedures in making chocolate. And the response from Marissa was, thanks for taking the time to contact me. Not, I'm really busy, we're a big corporate, get lost. It was quite the opposite. I'm thrilled you've got a genuine interest in what we're doing. I love this bit. It would sit with our School of Chocolate, the development team's School of Chocolate. So the lovely Sam, as she puts it, has been copied in on this. And the lovely Sam came back with some very specific suggestions about what they could do, the sort of resources that were available, maybe linking up with the manager from the Derby store. So really constructive response, having gone to them with a proper story and a clear proposition about a win-win partnership. So the outcome was that the youngsters, they did produce designs for chocolate bars, and this is the teacher's email sending the work across. They did also, as part of so this is English, and it was also combined, I think it was with geography, it might have been science, but it was about ethical practices and being green. And these are youngsters writing, saying, you know, to the managing director of Hotel Chocolat, saying, now I think you could do better, guys. You know, it was that kind of message, really fabulous letters. So they were written off, the persuasive writing letter. And so Sam responded saying, thanks so much. You know, what a lovely thing to receive on a Monday morning. One of our chocolatiers will provide feedback, and I will reply to each of the letters. They'd selected the best of the letters to represent the year group, the year 5 students. And so she did. This is the feedback from the chocolatier, from Sam, from the School of Chocolate. And, you know, student by student, child by child, giving some response. And from the store, this is the manager of the Into Centre Hotel Chocolat store, holding examples of the youngsters' work and on a mobile phone recording a message saying, love the work you did, delighted to be learning about our ethical trading practices. But you can imagine how those youngsters felt hearing real feedback from a real organisation about a real challenge, not just the let's imagine stuff that was originally intended. And perhaps most importantly, you know, actually, what change will it make within the school? This is the head teacher saying, it got me thinking about the CPD and the legacy, what's left behind. These are not just, or should not be, just flash in the pan activities. You know, staff need to be committed. It's going to, you know, it does take a bit of extra work. And employers are working with them, not for them. It's a partnership. We're not just dumping things on the shoulders of an employer saying, can you come in and do a session about chocolate? It's a partnership. The lessons were still being taken, led and assessed by the teachers. The magic dust was sprinkled on top by the employer, bringing that to life. So going right back to kind of where I started with that blog that was published last November. This is a quote: embedding encounters with employers in existing schemes of work, particularly those that the teachers have identified as being likely to result in that picture we saw earlier, the child saying on board, what's the point? You can deal with these Gatsby benchmarks, so on and so on, but you don't even need to mention careers. And I think my sort of learning point is, from a few years of doing this, is that the less you say about careers, use that term or terminology, type of terminology, the more likely you are to be able to engage everybody in the school. That means teachers at the sharp end of teaching and learning. So this is perhaps the final slide I'm going to show about our work, which is, what have we learned? What's the best way of developing this, our model, the CPD approach? This is all freely available. So if you go on the website, all the resources, all the case studies are freely accessible. But you do need to nurture good practice, and finding one or two people who can become experts really helps. Train the trainer kind of approach. It must have support from the top. That's obviously echoing what was found by the more recent research at the University of Derby and elsewhere. You must have leadership support, otherwise it will just be isolated examples of success. If you want it to be across the whole school, or give academies, enterprise trust, a whole group of schools, or think of the work in Derby across the whole opportunity area, or as we're currently doing, working across careers hubs. It can, and I think ideally should, involve local employers. They're the ones most likely to have a heart for what's happening with the children at their local school. And it's about building capacity. You want people to say, I've got how this works, let me help you. So, the thing is self-perpetuating, because there's capacity building happening within a school, within a trust, within a careers hub. So, final point, and I hope I've allowed, yeah, good, I have allowed time for discussion about this. I'd be really interested in your thoughts. When I was working in Bradford, this was one of the employers we worked with. It's a customer service organization, and this is their application, the front page of, actually it was about a 10-page application form, but on the front page, after you'd given your personal details, it just said, what separates you from the crowd? This is a genuine application form, job application form. And it sort of got me thinking, because, plenty of other employers will do something similar using different words. If you cannot answer that question well, they probably won't even turn the page. They probably won't look at those. They'll have a pile of application forms on that desk. That first question is absolutely critical. So the thing which I'm wanting us to perhaps discuss in breakout rooms initially, and then we'll bring this together. I'll be really interested in your contributions. So here we are, Fair Education Alliance Impact Festival. So in a fair education system, i.e. not just youngsters who've got privileged situations, parents who've got networks, or schools which are in leafy suburbs, for every child, how can we ensure that they all have the opportunity, as a result of their school education, to stand out from the crowd? What do you think? How can we fix that? Because to my mind, that is at the heart of what the point is of an education system. And I hope, honestly, it's something that we can address in this sort of search for a new normal. But what do you think? How do you equip youngsters to stand out from the crowd? So Ellie, can you sort out the breakout room so we can have a chat? Thanks. Okay, have we got everybody back? Sure. Elliot, can you tell, have we got everyone back? Okay. We've got 5 minutes left. Certainly the room I was in, there's some great comments and feedback and experiences. And I'm very conscious, I've shared my experience, things I've been involved with over the last few years, and a couple of examples, but I'm very aware that there are people on the screen in front of me who've got very different experiences. So if you've got some thoughts about this critical question, how do you equip each child to discover what sets themselves apart from the crowd? What are your thoughts? If you were to say one thing from your experience or your hopes, what would it be? I'm going to pick on Josh because he was in my group, but because you were talking about the work you do for Envision, and you've just been doing some reflection work. Say a bit about that.
Yeah, so throughout the program, they developed four key skills themselves, and also through mentor support. So we're doing sort of end of program surveys, and so we're just sort of discussing what skills they developed. So this week I've been going into the schools and asking them to write down specific examples of times that they've shown leadership or shown teamwork, and helping them discover that. But one of the great ways that I found quite successful is actually getting them to sort of reflect on each other. So asking them to say, what has the person next to you done? What example can you give? Can you show that they've sort of shown teamwork or developed teamwork skills? Which I found to be a bit easier and maybe a bit more powerful, because I always sort of say, you know, we're told we can't really talk about ourselves in this way. It's, you know, it's maybe it's a bit arrogant to say I'm good at this, this, and this. But preparing them for, you know, interviews and things, you have to be able to speak about yourself and say what you're good at. So a good starting point is getting them to say what somebody else is good at, and then hopefully that can sort of transfer onto them speaking about what they end up being good at as well. So yeah, I've been finding that really, really great this week.
That's such an empowering thing. You know, one expects a teacher to say, well done, well done. But, you know, when your mates in your classroom, peer support saying is so empowering to have somebody saying, no, you're brilliant at that. That's a lovely thing to see happen in the classroom as well. Cool. We're up against time. I suspect Ellie needs to say a few things just to wrap up, or Sharon, I'm not sure who, but perhaps one other contribution. Words of wisdom, come on, I haven't got them all. Okay. All right, so I'll hand back to Ellie, because we are kind of up against time, and you may need to say some things to wrap up, I'm not sure.
Thanks, Gerard. I'm going to hand back to Ellie in a bit. But yeah, big thank you to you for this great session. And I'd request everyone to just come off mute and give Gerard a big round of applause for all the words of wisdom and all the great anecdotes and stories. Before we jump off the call, it'd be great to do a quick feedback poll. We love learning. We want to know kind of how to improve this going forward. It's the first year we're running the Impact Festival in its current version. So Ellie, if you, actually before we go into the, okay, well, we have the poll, so let's do this first, and then I'll talk about the other thing. Who can you see it? Yes, the first person is voted. I can see the votes trickling in. Awesome, and that's all. That's everyone. Thank you so much for your feedback. What I was going to say is you can also send us written feedback via email. This is more of a snapshot, and you can send that at fea.events@faireducation.org.uk, which Ali will put in the chat. So we'd love to hear from you, sort of more detailed feedback if you're willing to share. And yeah, that's about it. And thanks for joining. I've seen a lot of you through multiple sessions, so thanks for engaging and joining us in the different conversations, and thanks for your participation in this festival. Hope you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you very much.